What do you want me to do? Let me try and see if I can connect right now and see if anything has resolved itself. All right. Fucking stupid computer.
You guys, you'll never guess where I got this premium hash hole.
Good morning, guys. I apologize for the technical difficulties over here. We're experiencing some something going on with the internet. I'm not exactly sure, but we have been trying to figure it out. So I do apologize in that regard. So today is going to be kind of maybe a little specialer kind of show or something. You know what I'm saying? Little on the, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Under this plot.
Yeah. I think it's something like that. It's a special.
Yeah. I think it's something like that. It's a special
needs spot.
Like,
the liberals heard you were drinking their tears, Jason, and they're not having it.
Is that
off and playing off in your system?
Maybe, possibly.
It's okay. Listen, hey, today's show hosted and produced by Jason Beck is a huge deal.
Yeah. Good morning, you guys. It is Wednesday, May 28th, and today is National Beef Burger Day. It's also National Senior Health and Fitness Day. National Hamburger Day. Shout out to McDonald's, right?
Wait, beef burgers and hamburgers?
Beef burgers and hamburgers, yep. Oh, it's also, Yara would love this, it's National Brisket Day.
I think I'm Yarrow for today.
Maybe, possibly. And it's also it's National Flip Flop Day today, you guys.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast, and please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above and down below to see exactly where we live on the internet, and we are only live today on YouTube because we are having technical difficulties, so I do apologize to everyone on any one of those other platforms that we would be watching us. But nonetheless, we are going to kick this off with Miss Jenny Beth Dills. She's the founder of Kind Cannabis and of Justice Served, a 501c3 that can help justice-impaired individuals get their lives back on track. That's right, it is none other than Miss Jenny Beth Dills.
Thanks, Jason. Well, I have a justice-impacted individual here because this lady's stupid.
Yeah.
You'll appreciate it. It's a dumbest criminal story. Yara wouldn't appreciate it, but hey, sorry, I can't talk about taxes again. A Canadian woman who reported her luggage missing at Scotland's Glasgow airport has now pleaded guilty to smuggling more than $120,000 worth of cannabis into the country. 54-year-old Shauna Eburn arrived at Glasgow Airport on February 25th after flying in from Toronto via Iceland. But after leaving the airport in a taxi without her suitcase, she returned later to report it missing. That bag, however, had already caught the attention of Border Force officers during routine customs checks. Officials say the suitcase had been left unattended and was flagged for further inspection. When X-rayed, it revealed an abnormality inside. Inside were 45 vacuum-sealed packages containing over 51 pounds of cannabis. According to court records, Eburn claimed she didn't know what was inside the suitcase and that she was just told to pick it up. She was still arrested at the ticket desk and charged with possession and intent to supply a controlled drug. Eburn remains in custody at Greencock Prison and is due to be sentenced June 30th. I mean, this story kind of speaks for itself, and I'll let you guys talk about it, but that's pretty fucking stupid. Dale, would you ever represent someone this dumb?
Only to have her cop a plea and go away and shut up, you dumb fuck.
How much weed did she have, Jenny Beth?
51 pounds.
51 pounds.
I didn't know.
Man.
It was a surprise to me.
I mean, I didn't
know I was drug smuggling. Someone probably just paid me to just carry, what do you think was in the suitcase that you were told to pick up, Miss Ma'am?
You can say that. It's a defense. I don't know if it's a good one, but
I don't know. I'll tell you this much. So she's saying, correct me if I'm wrong, she's saying that her bag was missing and that when the police found her bag, all of a sudden this weed was inside of it.
She's saying she forgot it. She got in a taxi and forgot it and then came back to claim it. And she didn't know it was inside the suitcase. She was just told to pick it up.
That doesn't make sense.
She's 54 years old. I'm not going with the dumb shit. She's too old for the dumb shit.
That just doesn't make sense in so many levels.
I know. She took the flight, so she flew with the bag. So she wasn't just told to go back and pick it up. I'm sure she was told to just pick it up at the Toronto airport, but like she flew through 2 countries with it. So, ma'am.
But she's saying, like, her defense is, I left it, someone tampered with it. I had no knowledge of there being 51 pounds of weed in it upon retrieving it. Oh, okay. Like, I get
so
the defense, but okay. It's pretty far-fetched. I don't know if the judge is going to buy it.
Judge is definitely not buying that. That's a whole bunch
I
of
mean, I don't think when I read the article, I don't think she said that somebody tampered with it while she was gone. She's just saying, oopsie, forgot my bag. Oopsie, never knew what was inside my bag.
So someone basically tampered with the bag, loaded it up with all of those drugs, and then gave her back. She never said, hey, my hair dryer's missing or anything like that?
No, what she's saying is she never knew what was in the bag to start with.
Yeah, see, that's a problem.
Canada.
That's a problem.
In Canada.
But she possessed it, she flew it, she reclaimed it. Possession is 9/10, and on those 2 flights, she possessed this item, whether she knew what was in it or not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That dog don't hunt. I'm sorry. It ain't going to pass the smell test for a judge. And I can just imagine a jury snickering.
Right?
That's 51 pounds. I'm pretty sure it smells.
I didn't have just a couple of gummies, you know. I had 51. I didn't know it was in there. Somebody paid me $5,000 to take it through.
Well, not to mention the fact that it's 51 pounds means
overweight.
Yeah, exactly. It's an overweight bag. On top of it, too. So like, there's fees involved with that. She should have just took like 2 pounds out.
My experience with criminals is that they're not always the smartest people. You know, the sharpest tool in the shed.
Yeah.
Or
there we have it.
Talk a Mimi story because it's the only defense they could possibly come up with. And they're reaching, and we'll let them go with it because everybody gets their day in court. But yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Something like that. Well, yeah. I've had a few discussions in my office that are confidential. I'm pretty blunt, as you guys know. I call it as I see it. When someone gives me a cock and bull story like that, it's like, oh, dude, you know, you better get a commissary account set up because you're going to prison.
Yeah, right?
You're going to try to sell that shit. It ain't going to work.
Get a commissary account set up. That's a good one, Dale. I like that. That's
traffic,
funny.
Or you're especially over multiple flights, like, I don't know, just, is this an old school way? Is the new generation not ready to do the time? Like, you have to anticipate if you're doing something illicit that you may be caught and what the consequences are if you are caught. And then also, I mean, if you're doing this and then like, otherwise you need to consider if you're going to be a snitch. Like, don't tell me that these things don't run through people's heads.
She's 54 years old. She's not the new generation. This broad's old.
Not real smart either.
No.
You're right.
Well, on that, we're going to roll into our first commercial, and we're going to see if this works. Let's see.
Oh, man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, I left one, you know? But I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade, and in a GMP certified facility. So you know you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Test it. It's not a name, it's a promise.
All right, look at that, and we're back, you guys. Man, oh man, look at that. Look at that. It worked. It worked. You. All right. Well, sweet.
Are you ready, Jason?
Yeah, I'm gonna roll into my first story of the day.
All right. The High at 9 News head honcho and producer today Jason back.
Yes. Good morning, you guys. Good morning, you guys. Good morning. Well, let me tell you something, Dale. You're going to love this because a federal appeals court upholds a marijuana criminalization and rejects an industry lawsuit, Dale. That's right. On May 14, 2025, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the First Circuit dismissed a lawsuit by 4 cannabis companies seeking to overturn the federal criminalization of marijuana. The unanimous ruling, issued by a 3-judge panel, upheld the constitutionality of marijuana's classification as a Schedule I drug under the Controlled Substances Act, dealing a blow to businesses operating legally under state laws. The decision, reported by Marijuana Moment, reinforces federal prohibition despite growing state-level legalization, and the lawsuit and its arguments, well, the plaintiffs, Canna Provisions, Verano Holdings, Terrapin Investment Fund, and the Global Healthy Living Foundation filed the suit back in 2023, and we covered it here on High at 9 News, challenging the CSA's authority over interstate cannabis commerce. Represented by attorney David Boyce, the companies argued that the federal ban violates the Commerce Clause and exceeds congressional authority and infringes on due process by criminalizing state-regulated activity. They claim the CSA's prohibition causes irreparable harm, including banking restrictions, tax burdens under IRS Code 280E, and the threat of federal raids. The lawsuit, filed in Massachusetts, a state with legal adult-use cannabis since 2016, sought an injunction to prevent federal enforcement against state-compliant businesses. The plaintiffs emphasized that 38 states, including Massachusetts, have legalized cannabis in some form, creating a $32 billion industry that conflicts with federal law. And in a quote, Congress has no rational basis to criminalize an industry operating legally under state oversight, Boyce argued in court filings. But the court's rationale overall was the First Circuit, in a 35-page opinion by Judge Julie Rinkelman, rejected the challenge, affirming a 2024 district court dismissal. The panel ruled that the CSA falls within Congress's Commerce Clause authority, as marijuana's interstate market impacts national drug policy. Rinkelman cited the 2005 Supreme Court case Gonzalez versus Raich, Dale, which upheld federal prohibition even for interstate medical cannabis, noting that local production affects the broader illicit market. And in a quote, they say, Congress should rationally conclude that interstate marijuana activity has a substantial effect on interstate commerce, Rinkelman wrote. The court also dismissed due process claims, finding no evidence that the CSA's scheduling lacks a rational basis, and the judge acknowledged ongoing debates about marijuana's medical value and safety, but deferred to Congress, stating in a quote, it is not irrational for Congress to maintain prohibition while studies continue. The panel noted recent federal moves like the 2024 proposal to reschedule cannabis to a Schedule III, but said these do not undermine the CSA's current legality. And industry reaction and next steps. Well, basically, the Canna Provision CEO Meg Sanders expressed disappointment but vowed to continue to fight. And in a quote, she says, the federal government's refusal to align with state laws is hurting businesses and consumers, she said. The plaintiffs are considering an appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court through the Raich precedent. Though the Raich precedent poses a high bar, Boyce, in a statement, called the ruling out of step with the reality of state-regulated markets and signaled further legal action. The decision highlights the cannabis industry's ongoing struggles under federal prohibition, and businesses face restricted access to banking, inability to deduct standard expenses, and risks of asset forfeiture. And the National Cannabis Industry Association, NCIA, not a plaintiff but supportive, urged Congress to act, saying judicial remedies are limited, said spokesperson Aaron Smith. Aaron Smith's their director. He's not their spokesperson. It's time for legislative reform like the States Act or full descheduling, he says. And in some broader context, the ruling comes amid shifting federal policy. In August of 2024, the Justice Department proposed reclassifying marijuana as a Schedule III drug and acknowledging its medical use and lower abuse potential. However, the process ongoing as of May 2025 won't legalize state markets or resolve banking and tax issues. And meanwhile, 24 states have legalized adult use cannabis and 14 allow for their medical use, creating this patchwork of laws clashing with the federal government, you guys. The First Circuit's decision aligns with prior rulings, including a 2022 Second Circuit dismissal of a similar suit. However, it contrasts with growing public support. 70% of Americans favor legalization per a 2024 Gallup poll and state-level momentum. But for now, cannabis businesses must navigate a legal gray area, with the First Circuit reinforcing federal supremacy, as Sanders put it in a quote, "We're legal in our state, but criminals in the eyes of the federal government. That's unsustainable," he says. Well, I'm not surprised by this ruling. Oh man, but I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this. What do you guys say about this, Dale? Should they have even gone with these types of arguments to the Supreme Court for this?
Well, this is the kind of case you file because you want it to be in front of the Supreme Court. And you're going to get your ass kicked all along the way. And I mean, I've railed against the Raich decision. I mean, once it was decided, I got indicted because you knew that, we can go after anybody now. And this goes clear back to the New Deal. And the pendulum in the courts right now, especially SCOTUS, is we're swinging the pendulum back to the pre-New Deal days. Okay? Before we allowed all this federal power to encroach into the rights of the states. I'm not sure how that's going to actually work out. Because the SCOTUS we have right now, and Clarence Thomas is like the beacon for this, is that we have this thing called the 10th Amendment. And it gives the states the rights to do what they want to do unless the federal Constitution prohibits them from acting in the area, which it doesn't here. And the substantial impacts test is that squishy definition that actually means nothing. No one ever went in and litigated, well, what's a substantial impact on interstate commerce? You never asked that question, and they never litigated to get an answer to allow it to be there. And once they allow this, now the constitutional test is not strict scrutiny or even intermediate scrutiny. It's a rational basis test. And you can't win a rational basis argument in the courts against the federal government unless it is a strictly listed constitutional right. Sorry, you lose every time. So it's got to get in front of SCOTUS and have them reevaluate the substantial impact test as it comes to intrastate activities. Okay? By definition, the federal government has no right to interfere with intrastate activities, but they pulled this test out of their ass. Well, if it has a substantial impact on interstate commerce, we get to step in. Clarence Thomas said, hang on, we got a 10th Amendment. Are we just going to erase it from the books? Are we going to give the states some power to oversee their own, what we call police powers, health, safety, and welfare powers inside their state? I don't know that we get this solved at this level, because you can go to almost any circuit around the country and predict what they're going to do. Why? They come out to the Ninth Circuit if you want one kind of decision. You might go to Alabama for another. It's got to get to SCOTUS. We've got to have some consensus on how do we handle states' rights anymore, because right now it's hard to find them.
Question.
Go for it.
Like, mind you, I just got through the Texas Ledge and my brain is not on 10. But I think a question of ignorance could be a good one here. What if the posture is like, is there a possibility that they would create federal medical laws handed over to pharmaceuticals, and then if you're operating outside of that, tough cookies? Like,
that's called Schedule 3. That's called Schedule 3. That's what would happen under Schedule 3.
Right. That's what would happen under Schedule 3.
Yeah.
Could they, because like I'm thinking, and Jason, it's good to have you, obviously, but because you understand, or you have more insight into Trump's policies or thinking, or his team's thinking. But he's repeatedly said, I like what they have going on in Florida. And this was during, like, they were talking about the medical expansion, and they didn't pass the expansion. He liked the medical.
He voted for it.
From what I understand, it was exclusively medical. And I'm just trying to forecast, like, if they were, I feel like all these judges, these decisions, like Dale's point, 100% everything, yes. And I do believe these people organize behind the scenes. Like judges know legislators know, like everybody knows each other at this level. It's not a huge circle. They have to be having conversations, and I would imagine receiving marching orders for actions to be taken next, because we've noticed, at least this is a different state, but this is federal, but like even on state levels, we're noticing judges leaning more conservatively recently, like, and pulling things back. We're seeing this play out in Texas in real time, and we just got the ban, and they're going to expand medical, and it's like a card that they play so they can gain favor with the people while also tightening things down to continue control. I'm curious for the crowd, the audience, in the comments as well. What if they make it federal medical rules and you're operating outside of that? Isn't that a way to get rid of all the casework? We have a law now. Here's the federal law. And you states, do whatever you want. And if you want chaos in your state, it's up to you. But this is how the feds will rule. Like, I feel like that is the most likely play, because I don't think they, that gives them the money and control, the power. They can hand it over to lobbying dollars who have paid for campaigns. Like, am I off base here?
Can't get that through the courts, though. That's got to go through Congress. And that is part of the problem. What the courts can do, and this is going clear back to Marbury versus Madison in the Jefferson administration, is they'll hold the law up to the Constitution. If it doesn't fit, they just say the law is unconstitutional and throw it out. That's what the courts can do. They throw out this theory of substantial impacts and say, no. Crosses a state line, fine. If it doesn't, you're shit out of luck, because it's a state right under the 10th Amendment. Congress would have to step in and fashion some sort of a law and rule. If we're going to do that, and are we going to have consensus here? My argument is no, we're not. We're not going to get consensus, and that's part of the problem. Making this strictly medical, I think, defies what the average person out there that's, if you think about weed, what do you think about? Well, I think about Cheech and Chong. I don't think about LV Musica getting 30 dumbass, weak fucking federal cigarettes a month. Don't think about that. So messaging here is a problem for our industry, because we want it to be medical. Empathy will get us a lot farther in our minds than just saying, hey, we want to smoke weed, the fuck out of our way. It doesn't work so well. So I'm struggling to find out how we get a consensus in the Congress. And I think if the court has its way under the sway of Clarence Thomas, they'll find this unconstitutional, at least I hope. Then they got to, now the courts have said, you can't do this. Congress, shit or get off the pot, do something here.
But what if it was, because obviously it's an election year, it'll be a campaign issue. So they'll hold it until they can make money off of it. Not money, but insight, following, reach, news headlines, all of that PR value. And I'm just wondering if they're not doing and setting us up on purpose to do that, and that the Republicans will come up with a federal medical, I don't know.
The federal medical is Schedule 3, though. That's what I'm trying to say, Shaun. Federal medical is Schedule 3, where that would be given directly to the pharmaceutical companies, because there's already this thing called drug preclusion, and there's companies that have drug preclusion on THC for Marinol, and then also for CBD for Epidiolex. And once it goes to Schedule 3, it'll be regulated by the FDA. Currently, the FDA doesn't have jurisdiction over Schedule 1 drugs. That's why the FDA doesn't come into the picture for anything with how we are operating now. And so once that does, then they can regulate everything, and come after everybody that's operational. That's 100% a reality, because you also have the Food, Drugs, and Cosmetic Act, and every single cannabis product would fall under that, and therefore everyone's going to get fucked.
If I put that on my bingo card for this is a bar. This is like, it's a football game. This is we're in the second quarter with this judicial stuff. And they said themselves, we only have so much power. You got to read between the lines a little bit. Like, yes, we acknowledge that you can only do so much with judicial intervention. I think someone else will intervene.
Yeah.
And if the Democrats don't get their shit together, they will lose this. As we've seen, it has been taken over by the Republicans here in Texas, and they've decided for us only 12 licensees and 8,000 shops will close.
That's kind of crazy.
Why I was like, I think this is what
I don't think anybody should close. I think everyone should stay open, and then people should just keep on reopening. I mean, because it's you know, if anything is evident from here in Southern California, Los Angeles, and whatnot, you keep on putting that pressure on the government. They don't have the wherewithal to be able to whack-a-mole everybody.
I know that is true, but I also understand in Texas that the people who are disproportionately targeted can't afford that because
it's not about that. It's about all the activists getting out there and educating and really getting behind all the people that are fighting that fight and really educating the jury base about jury nullification and encouraging everybody to take it to the box. And you just have to have people that are going to stand up and do that. And once they lose enough cases through jury nullification, there's not going to be a lot of gunpowder left in their muskets to be firing these things off.
Yeah, but sometimes I hear you, Jason.
That's just, hey, if you want it to work, that's how it's going to happen. And like if you don't, if people just want to go and play ostrich and stick their head in the sand and whatnot, that they can do that too.
Playing ostrich, but Texas, you can get arrested and wait. Just for your,
we've always got arrested. Getting arrested isn't like anything new, Shaun. Like that's just always been part of the situation. It's just new to newbies that people aren't getting arrested. That's always been a reality.
Session, they specifically introduced legislation to address the issue that we have specific to Texas, that people sit and wait for years before they even get to the point where, should you have ever been arrested? That's your wait.
You're only going to be waiting years if you waive your time. That's the only way that you're going to be waiting years, because there's still a cadence for which judicial process has to maintain a cadence, and Dale can touch on that.
They're backlogged.
It doesn't matter if they're backlogged. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Well, the Speedy Trial Act, which is what I think you're talking about.
Thank you, Dale.
Is unless you waive your right to a speedy trial.
Yep.
You got to get your ass in front of a jury with alacrity.
Exactly.
And, I've argued this before, Jason, that if people just said, okay, if I'm going to take some lumps, I'm going to blow the system up. Okay? It takes a coordinated effort. Your attorney's got to be on board.
Yep.
Got to be on board.
Exactly.
As soon as you get indicted, you go, okay, I want the earliest possible trial date.
Yep.
And 95% of cases filed don't go to trial. There isn't enough courtroom space or juries to try all these cases, but you got to be prepared to be treated roughly.
Yep.
Because if you blow the system up like this, they're going to take every chance they can to fuck with you.
Oh, they will. That's for sure. They've done it to me, and I've done it to them back, and I've been fighting. I'm still fighting, still to this day.
So many people can afford to do that, and I will say, I'm going to throw.
I don't see how you can't afford not to do it if you care about it so much.
Jason, you have kids.
I'm just reality. It's just reality. This is what it is.
Yeah, but you have to do it in a smart way. If I'm no good to anybody, if I'm behind bars, none of our people are good
That's
to
not
anyone.
True.
Locked up.
That's not true.
It is true.
That's not true. That's not true. That's not true at all, Shaun, because all the people that are behind bars, they put up these posters of them, and that was what has been a big rallying cry to gain public support for criminal justice reform. So you can't say that you're sidelined and you're not doing anything. Like your image and whatnot is being portrayed to the American public.
You think public support is what actually moves laws?
Yes, 100%. Public opinion is a big player in that. Yeah, don't get it twisted.
They don't. The public, what we support is maybe enacted if they decide it. And I can tell you in Texas, it's definitely not. We just experienced that whiplash. And here's the other thing. I can appreciate what you're saying, but I prefer the route that organizations like the Texas Hemp Business Council are taking, where businesses like Hometown Hero, who have the pockets to do something like that, help support and build out the community to do it without encouraging folks to put themselves in the line of fire, because it is very different down here. You can, like, if you catch
it's not very different. I'm not buying that, okay? Because I'm from the drug war, from all the days when you could you it was probable cause if you even had a weed T-shirt on. So like you're not gonna tell me that it's different down here. No, because it's been the same. It's just changed over here. Okay, over time it's evolved.
We're talking about, Jason, to be fair, we're talking about national policy. We're not talking about Texas. So, like, you know, this is what it's always been. It is how it's always going to be unless we fucking change something. And public support definitely is swayed. When people are looking at things, they're like, wait, people are still in jail for weed, and I can have that conversation with them. That changes people's opinion. That moves the meter a little bit. And we have to continue to move it. And it sucks that people have to go to jail for that happening. And let's definitely not construe that we're encouraging people to put themselves in harm's way. What we're doing is we're encouraging people to stand up for what they think is right.
Correct.
And you know what? Not everybody has the sack to say, well, fuck it. I feel like morality and legality don't line up. I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing. And that's totally fine. Totally fine. No one is asking anyone to be a martyr for cannabis. But, like, this is what we've always done. I did this shit in Georgia where it's still not legal. So, like, I'm not really buying the whole garnering more public support is not going to help push people, because here's what happens when you call your representatives. When you see that there are people in prison and you're saying their names and you're signing petitions and we're sending those in, how do you think people get pardoned? This is how we move things. And unfortunately, people had to be casualties of the war on drugs for some people to get behind this.
Yeah, I can tell you for real. Now, when I was in prison, when Molly and I are in prison, Dana Rohrbacher heard about us. And he said, a doctor and a lawyer are in prison for trying to help sick people get some weed.
Yep.
Fuck. Okay. Well, there is impetus, but I did 5 years in prison to get that. Now, is that a reasonable price to pay? I would say no, but I did. Okay. And once they get you, I had no defense. So my hope was jury nullification, which, you know, the judge made sure that wasn't going to happen. So, I mean, I think you have to attack it both criminally and civilly, which I think is being done right now. It's got to work its way up through the courts. And I think SCOTUS, whether it's a criminal decision, whether it's a civil decision, some combination of both, steps in and says, what you're doing is unconstitutional, and just blows the whole thing up. And now the Congress has to do something. And I don't know if we're going to get anything before that, but it's going to take some sacrifice. I mean, I didn't sign up for this shit.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go to prison for 5 years, but I had a wife with cancer, okay? And I couldn't afford to keep buying weed for her, so I grew some. Unless you got no heart at all, you know, I had an AIDS patient. You know, I can't afford this. Well, here, throw a couple plants in here, whatever. If you have a heart, you're going to prison. And the federal government doesn't give two shits about whether you're doing something for the right reasons. They want to send a message. And at this point, the message they send is a bad one. If they're still arresting people that are basically low-level offenders in this, trying to take care of medical people, it's not a good look for them. I don't care which administration you are. And as far as the civil part of this, taking a business interest forward, ask the same question. Before you arrest me, and this is the OCBC case in Jeff Jones. They went after him civilly rather than criminally under the Controlled Substances Act. And the fight went all the way up to SCOTUS. We ultimately lost, but it opened a lot of eyes to things. And I think education is still something. And the problem we face is that we were put in a position with cannabis that started out as a racial attack to keep people from coming across the borders and trying to control them in inner cities and blah, 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 blah. And then Nixon turned it against the hippies. I was a hippie. You're smoking pot, you're a hippie. We want to go after you. It blew all this stuff up. I think today the average person's like, hey, this is safer than alcohol. Why are we treating it like depleted uranium? And you point out people, they're sitting in jail. Why? You can't think of other way to deal with someone who's using weed. These are the kind of questions the average person looks at and goes, now this ain't right. How do we build on that momentum? You know, there's the big question going forward, because a lot of these organizations, they exist to try to continue to exist. That's upsetting to me, because I like accountability. You can't get shit done, get out of the way.
Yep.
Right? Don't ask me for the donation when you can't find your ass with both hands and all you want is more money. I have a problem with that. I don't know the answer. Just know that the average citizen's looking at this and going, you're just promoting the black market. It seems reasonable to fix this in a way that allows business. You got to build on themes like that. Keep the cops out of this, unless you really are a cartel and you're using violence and threats and shit like that to get what you want. Those are what we call malum in se crimes. No, nobody wants that. But weed is malum prohibitum. It's bad because somebody said we don't want you doing it. Well, fuck you and the horse that brought you in here, okay? Oh, I think the public's perception of weed has changed so much. Trying to argue it's a bad thing makes you just look stupid.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Any other thoughts on that, Jenny Beth, before we move on?
Nope.
All right. Well, we're going to keep this train rolling. We're going to roll right into attorney at law, Mr. Dale Schafer. Dale's been an attorney since the Reagan administration. He has represented physicians, hospitals, insurance companies, cops, corrections officers, and for the last 25 years, he specialized in cannabis law. He served a 5-year federal prison sentence, as previously referenced in our last story, for helping medical marijuana patients and managed to save his law license. He's blunt. He doesn't smoke them because they're ratchet and nasty, and he's honest and unconcerned with your opinion, public opinions, and everyone else's opinion. And we'll show you how to defy gravity by pissing up a rope. That's right. It's your favorite Tio Loco, and you can now find him at his own law office at the law office of Dale Schafer. It is Mr. Dale Schafer.
Good morning again, everybody. It's your favorite Tio Loco, and the other handle is Full of Shiticus. The story that caught my attention came out of MJ Biz Daily. The headlines: marijuana operator Forefront files for receivership. Now this came out a couple days ago, but it caught my attention for a couple of reasons. The first is that the language used in here about the situation they're in by the, Chris Kane, who's supposedly the spokesperson or CEO of
He's a CEO.
Forefront. And you look at this and go, come on, bullshit. Guys are out over the front of your skis, and what they're saying is, we have a substantial balance sheet liabilities and a shortage of operational financing. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Got more debt than you can service, which is not unusual. That's like you're putting lipstick on a pig. Okay, we're broke. We don't have any money. Okay, we got more going out than we got coming in. Stop playing games with us. Now, this company happens to be, I think, on the Ontario Stock Exchange, or in the United States is a foreign corporation. It looks like their headquarters is in Arizona, but typically, whenever you go to a new state as a corporation setup, you got to register as a foreign corporation. Now, it looks like their Massachusetts operation is the first place where the math don't work out anymore. So they're going into voluntary receivership. Okay. Now, as opposed to involuntary, where one of your creditors goes, hey, I'm starting to take shit from you. So you go into involuntary receivership because you don't have a choice. This is voluntary, where you are trying to get in front of a court and asking them to appoint a receiver, take a look at our assets, take a look at our liabilities, and see if we can work out a deal where we do assignments for creditors. We get other creditors to agree to the deal we're trying to propose here, but it's not set in stone. That's where the federal bankruptcy laws come in. Because if you go to bankruptcy court, nationwide jurisdiction, doesn't matter where you live in the United States. If a bankruptcy court takes a case, you get notice as a creditor or debtor, and everything stops until the federal bankruptcy court steps in. If you're in receivership and you're in Massachusetts, let's say that a creditor lives in California and he gave you a loan and he has California as the jurisdiction for the loan. And by the way, you pledged your property for my loan. I have rights to lien it, all kinds of stuff. You file a receivership in Massachusetts and I'm in California. You go, well, we want you to come back to Massachusetts. And you go, well, did you read my note? My note says jurisdictions in California. So fuck you. I'm not going to Massachusetts. No, by the way, I just liened all your assets that you pledged for my note, and you really cannot wipe the slate clean like you can in bankruptcy. So I think that was one of the points I wanted to make. That we do not have the ability currently, if you're a plant-touching business, to go to bankruptcy court and notify every creditor, every debtor, everybody gets a notice. If you have this company owes you something or you owe them something, you better get your ass into bankruptcy court. You better declare it, and then the bankruptcy trustee will work out a plan. And if you can't get the plan worked out, then you just go into full bankruptcy, everything's sold. And when you walk away from that, you're left with no more liabilities. If you're in receivership, the scenario I just gave you, hey, I took $1 million loan out from investors in California. Note says I pledged property and jurisdictions in California. They go, you know what? We just leaned all your assets, and your order out of Massachusetts doesn't mean shit to me. Mm-hmm. That's one of the problems you face when you're only allowed to go to receivership. And this company, Forefront, I think in early May, they failed to issue a mandatory statement of their finances. Okay. And when they failed that, they put them on the no trade list. You know, it's like, hey, be careful, these guys. They're not telling us whether they're solvent or insolvent. And that started sort of the tumbling here. And it's very common in the industry to be out over the front of your skis, hoping and praying that nothing, you don't get a crosswind, something, kid don't run in front of you, whatever. Because if push comes to shove, can't pay your bills. So many companies are on that edge, and they're looking for financing. And if I represent a company that you're asking to put money in, and we do some due diligence, we got some serious questions for you. Like, how are you going to pay us back? Mm-hmm. You know, that's a problem. And you've got to, if you're not doing due diligence on this stuff, and you're going to Las Vegas and putting your money in the craps table, just being stupid. This is an ongoing problem in the industry that I don't know that it gets fixed until we have a change to federal laws. And we'll follow this and see if they can actually get all their creditors to go away and accept whatever the receiver wants them to do or not. So I'm going to throw this back at you for more comment and discussion.
Man, Jenny.
Oh, boy.
Jenny, go for it, Jenny.
Why? Because I'm captain receivership over here? Yeah, for those of you that don't know, I've operated companies while they're in receivership, which means that I came in once they were in receivership and took over the operations of the facilities. And that means, hey, by the way, we can't operate properly. We need someone who can. Nice to meet you. I'm someone who can. A large portion of that is going through their books, but people don't realize, like, if you file bankruptcy, it's like, okay, cool, we're going to accept your bankruptcy. It's not like, oh, no, you can't have a bankruptcy. Not how that fucking works. You have to prove that you have a savable asset, that you have something worth, you know, something to keep this thing going. And you also have to be able to pay the receiver, which is not a cheap situation.
No, they're not cheap.
Yeah, and if you cannot prove that you can pay said receiver, you do not get to go into receivership. And all your debt sits as it is, and you usually have to close your doors. So receivership is a frustrating situation, but voluntary receivership tells me, hey, we've misappropriated money. We've robbed Peter to pay Paul, and now can you please help us? My biggest piece of advice to any operator is get the fucking help before you screw it up so badly that it needs to go into this situation.
There are signs that you're heading there. And if the people running your company aren't paying attention to that, they need to be removed. Because they're going to get you in serious trouble.
100%.
The thing is, it's often the CEO, though. It is, I mean, I've done consulting on psychedelics and cannabis sites to help repair. And often it is this most senior leadership, and that's hard to manage because then you have issues with ego, and then that receivers. It's a whole process. There's a process to all of these things, and I would agree there are definitely signs. But if you are in the unfortunate situation where it happens to be the executive officer, you're going to have to address that first. Otherwise, solve anything.
Well, but I typically build into the corporations I set up the right for the directors to come in and remove people, and even have directors removed for malfeasance. And you can't call it having your head up your ass, but you need to be able, as a board, to take action. But what I found far too often is that these companies get set up and they put together a board, and all the board members together don't have a fucking clue what they're doing. Okay? And that's a problem, Because if you are, let's say, experienced or educated or been around running a decent sized company, you know that you have to have board meetings. You've got to be able to clearly state authority, what you're going to allow people to do before accountability sets up. And if you're not following and making people accountable before you're thinking about receivership, and you as a board have failed. Okay. And I've been hired to do a bunch of situations. I call them shit sandwiches. Where you look at the board, it's like a failed marriage. Nobody likes each other. They can't communicate anymore. So I recommend you go see a business psychologist and see if you guys can figure out how to work out your problems, because a divorce is going to be in the end of everything here. And we're talking about receivership is basically a divorce here. Can't do it. You know, and there's no such thing as a no-fault divorce in business. It don't work that way. You know, there's no child support, but if you haven't run that company well enough and someone can pierce that corporate veil, you're looking at your personal assets being in jeopardy.
Yeah.
I've had these discussions with people who were shareholders in corporations that were run inappropriately. And I remember asking one guy, you better have your wife's wedding ring appraised, because I mean, my law student pierced this corporate veil. This is being run so badly. It's just part of the problems. And you just have to be honest with yourself. If you don't know what the fuck you're doing, don't pretend like you do. Find someone who will at least ask questions of someone who's a professional. How should we handle this? Don't think you know what you're doing when you don't, because this ain't running a drug business. They're running pounds up and down the 5 freeway. There are layers of laws here. And if you screw this stuff up, you know, it can go really badly for a lot of people.
Oh, 100%. And if you're going into receivership and you know you're headed that way, start looking at receivers, but start looking at receivers who have people like myself who have, you know, a tenure of operational experience in the actual licensed regulated market, who've actually run these companies that you have just gone and screwed the fuck up. Don't just say, hey, well, I don't know. They have these people. They seem nice. They have experience in X, Y, Z. Is it running your business? Because if it's not, they don't know any better than you do, and they're going to bill you for it. So, I mean, that's also a huge issue. It's just like everybody's a fucking consultant. No, you're not. No, you're not anymore. Like, it's fucking crazy to me. Like, the fact that people will come in and take your freaking money having not done what they're supposed to teach you how to do. And so make sure, because I've seen people, you know, Jason, you've been through a receivership.
Yeah.
I've watched a lot of people go through receiverships with people who leave them worse than they got there.
Yeah. Yeah, we did. We went in worse than we came out worse than we did when we went into it. It was
because they had a bunch of
nightmare.
Jackasses who'd never done it before telling them how to do it.
It was a nightmare. It was so sad. I
remember.
Oh man, it's so rough. And like I have more PTSD, I think, than from receivership than I do from getting raided by the feds, to tell you the truth. And you know, my biggest source of PTSD is the mailman.
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, if you're watching your business fail and you can't touch it, one thing if you're fucking it up and you can look in the mirror and be like, hey, I'm fucking up today. We got to figure this out. It's another thing to be watching it fuck up and you're like, oh, shit, I can't even touch it. I can't go in the building.
Finding a receiver that knows this industry is difficult. It's very difficult because the court's got to bring him in to prove him. Okay. And people talk a great game. Just because you've been a receiver for a stop and rob or something in the Central Valley up here doesn't mean you understand a complex industry like cannabis, how to try and thread the needles here. And there aren't a lot of them that I've heard of who know what they're doing. So you know, be careful about this because they charge a ton of money. I mean, the bank account opens up and the cash register starts ringing. You better be prepared to pay them. And if you don't, nothing's going to go good for you. And it's just more of the reality that, yeah, I want to run a cannabis business. And well, you know, this is not something you should do as just a rookie. You should have people around you know what the fuck they're doing, because if not, you'll end up just floundering. And this company's floundering right now. And they're hoping to God this court will allow them to sell their assets and satisfy their creditors. I'll tell you, there's no guarantee because it's only a state-specific receivership. It's not bankruptcy.
Well, hold on a second, because they're a multi-state operator. So is this only receivership in one state, or is it affect all of their assets? Because they're in multiple states.
Oh, but if you have a business in Massachusetts that's failing and you want a receivership, you can't file for receivership in Arizona where their headquarters are. You got to go to Massachusetts where your business is. That's one of the problems with receivership. It is jurisdictional specific, where bankruptcy is nationwide. Anybody that owes you money or you owe them money, they get notice, and you all show up to the bankruptcy, and you all are going to take what the bankruptcy trustee says you're going to get. If you don't like it, too goddamn bad. That's what bankruptcy, it's a wiping the slate. If it's a reorganization, you get a reorganization schedule. If it's full bankruptcy, everything gets sold. And if you get 10 cents on the dollar, next time be smarter with your investment. That's what comes out of bankruptcy.
Interesting.
Woof. It sounds like you would do well to hedge these problems off ahead of time and hire someone like Jenny on the front end to give you good advice as you set up, and then get maintenance work. And then if you want to avoid the courts, get a fucking mediator in between you, especially if you're at each other's throats. They can give someone like Jenny to weigh in, and you can make a sound, educated decision without dragging yourself through that hell. I can feel it in my gut, what you were describing, Jason. Like, no.
Oh, it's the worst.
PTSD.
Yeah, it's the worst. The mailman gives me more PTSD. Yeah, the mailman gives me PTSD more than I think probably anybody in all of the world, because he never has anything really good. It's always just like after he's gone and like there's nothing in there. It's like, oh yes, great, go on till tomorrow. But well, on that, we're gonna roll into our next commercial, and we are gonna be right back. I think we're getting our technical difficulties a little bit fixed out. I think so. Thank you to Anthony for all of your diligence in trying to figure this out. And again, we do apologize for the technical difficulties. Yes, and stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you smash that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it, and YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website shortly after the show at www.high9news.com. And sorry if you're normally join us from another platform. We're only on YouTube today, and we do apologize, and we will be better tomorrow.
I just ordered the summertime strawberry salad when added steak on top here at Anna's. Make sure you do the same thing too next time you're in downtown Long Beach. Come on down and check out Anna's joint on the 400 block of Pine Street. They have amazing selection of beers, foods, and when you come down here to Anna's, you can even challenge me to a game of shuffleboard if you want to lose. That. So, next time you're in downtown Long Beach on Pine Avenue, make sure you stop by Anna's Joint on the 400 block. Not only do they have Anna's Joint, this restaurant and bar, but they also have the amazing deli next door, and then next door to that they have a very exotic flower shop. You may want to stop by and say hi.
Yes, and we are back, you guys, and we are going to roll right into Miss Shaun Salvaje. She's a mom. She's a veteran. It was just Memorial Day, and she's also a mediator that can help you bring your conflict resolution to a resolution. That's right. It is none other than Miss Shaun Salvaje.
Thank you, Jason. Yes. Let us bring our conflict to resolution before it gets too far.
Fight is what I say. Fight.
Yeah, so the resolution, the state already has resolutions for everybody. It's a good idea to resolve it yourself, because otherwise the state will do it for you. But my story, luckily, doesn't take place in the United States. we're going across the pond over to Europe. In London, this story is coming to you from James Kelly of the BBC. The mayor of London has backed a report's call for cannabis law reform. The possession of small quantities of cannabis for personal use should be decriminalized, a report backed by the London mayor has concluded. The report by the London Drugs Commission, chaired by former Labour cabinet minister Lord Falconer. I hope I said that right. If you're British, feel free to correct me. Makes 42 recommendations, including removing natural cannabis from the Misuse of Drugs Act. Lord Falconer told BBC Radio for today's program that continuing to have possession as a crime meant continuing to have problems between the police and ethnic communities. Okay. The Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, said that the report's recommendations were not the government position and that we are not going to be changing our policy. Lord Falconer said the current law doesn't work, it's disproportionate, and is used to relieve genuinely symptoms of certain illnesses. He said, stop and search in London, for example, is most commonly based, so they're still doing stop and frisk on the basis of smell. Stop and search, most commonly based on the smell of cannabis, and it is disproportionately used against young Black men. He added, the law treats cannabis the same as a whole range of much more serious drugs. The right course now, we think, is keep dealing criminal, but make sure that possession is not a crime. So they're trying to de-escalate a bit. Sir Sadiq Khan said the current rules, quote, cannot be justified, adding that the commission's findings had provided a compelling evidence-based case for decriminalization. So at least in London, they're actually talking about decriminalization. It echoes of cities in the United States who did the same. David Rains of the National Prevention of Drug Alliance said any reduction in the legal consequences around cannabis would wrongly send the message that cannabis was less harmful. The report makes recommendations in areas covering education, healthcare, and the policing of cannabis. Among the recommendations, it says natural cannabis should be removed from the NDA where it is considered Class B alongside drugs like ketamine, and instead maintained as a controlled substance under the Psychoactive Substance Act. The report states the possibility of custodial prison sentence of any length, but certainly up to the current maximum of 5 years for possession of cannabis for personal use feels excessive. 5 years for personal possession. While acknowledging that it is very rare for anyone to be sentenced anywhere close to the 5 years, the author said the consequences of serving any time in prison are significant. Yeah, nobody wants to be, someone in the comments earlier said, once you're in the system, you're in the system. That's for life. It's a life sentence. Not something we're calling for. The report states that police officers identify cannabis possession through the use of stop and search, which continues to be utilized in a racially disproportionate way. Its authors call for the suspicion of cannabis possession to be removed as a reason officers can initiate search. They argue even when a person is found with an amount deemed beyond personal use, the current legal consequence feels extreme relative to the dangers of cannabis itself. And then they continued the argument. It's a very long article, but definitely one worth reading. Bringing it back to the team. What happens when cities decriminalize, but we don't have that rule of law? Like, I don't know. I've learned from a pattern. I'd love to hear your insights.
Can't be enforced anymore. That's the problem.
Yeah.
When these laws were put in place, majority of people thought that cannabis, weed, marijuana, whatever term they were using, the pejorative term, was a dangerous substance. And as time went along, we found out the sky didn't fall. You know, we're not having carnage on the highways. People are beginning to understand that maybe we weren't told the whole truth here. And in a prohibitionary law sense, you don't have almost full acceptance by the society of the illegality of something you're trying to prohibit. You simply can't enforce the law. So what you're pointing out is there's disproportionate enforcement. Okay, and who do you think in your mind is doing this? Well, it turns out that they look at black and brown people more than look at old white dudes like me. Okay, it's wrong, but it's real. And then that creates disrespect for law and order. And it's just a cycle that goes on. And I mean, I think it was Mark Twain said that, the prohibition makes things precious. And so when you make something precious, you get people doing it. And if the society doesn't support going after them for doing it, then you end up in this situation right now where there is no good answer here other than weed should not be treated like this. It should be treated more like alcohol, which is what it's even safer than alcohol. And I think that the average person is getting the message that, if you want to find out an asshole, go find a drunk. Someone who's smoking weed, they're not going to fight the cops. They're not going to run from you. They're not going to cause other problems. And I think that the average person is beginning to understand this. The sky hasn't fallen, and we're increasingly legalizing this stuff. At some point, they got to stop pointing fingers and say you're all a bunch of drug addicts, and recognize that we don't belong in prison for smoking pot. It just shouldn't be that way. And going back to LaGuardia and even the Schafer Commission reports, the government was told small commerce in marijuana, just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. Didn't want to pay attention to that. Here we are. Small commerce in marijuana really can't be enforced. But there are people who think, I'm just going to kick your ass and you'll stop. No, you're going to look like an asshole. And that's where the cops are looking in this.
Fair. Man, I mean, we'll see if Parliament acts on this and whatnot. And I don't have a lot of faith that they will get anything done. But I do think that it's good. What's the gentleman's name that you said, Sir? Who?
I think Lord Faulkner.
Faulkner.
It's the mayor of London though who wants this to happen to decriminalize it.
Lord
and
Faulkner.
You guys let me know if I slaughtered that name.
I love it, Lord Faulkner. I mean, it's great. That's a freaking awesome name. I'm not mad at that.
They all had names, and that article was written in British spelling.
Yes.
So thanks for bearing with me as I looked at the essay.
It was great. It was great, Shaun. It was great. And shout out to London, all our friends over across the pond. We love you guys a lot. We're gonna roll into our next commercial, and we're gonna be right back.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, my left one, But I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade, and in a GMP certified facility. So you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a name, it's a promise.
Memorial Day weekend. Yes, and we are back, you guys, and we're going to roll into our final two stories of the day today, you guys. Because an Oklahoma bill mandating annual medical marijuana industry training becomes law without the governor's signature, you guys. Yep, that's right. A bill requiring annual training and credentialing for employees in Oklahoma's medical marijuana industry has become law after Governor Kevin Stitt declined to sign or veto the measure. That's right. By taking no action, the governor allowed House Bill 2837 to take effect following its approval in the legislature, where it passed the House 75-12 and the Senate 31-14. The new law mandates that all employees working in the state's medical marijuana sector complete educational training annually to receive or renew their work credentials. The Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority, better known as the OMMA, will be responsible for approving the training programs, which may include instruction on state regulations, patient advocacy, and the safe handling and storage of marijuana products. In addition to the training requirement, all industry employees must undergo a fingerprint-based state-based background check, and these checks will be conducted through a third-party vendor contracted by the OMMA, which will also manage credential processing and eligibility verification. An amendment adopted during the legislative process pushed back the start date for the mandatory training program from January 1st of 2026 to January 1st of 2027, and lawmakers said the delay would give both businesses and regulators more time to implement the new system. House Bill 2837 was sponsored by Representative Burns and Senator Coleman. With no veto or signature from the governor, the bill has now become law under Oklahoma's constitutional rules, you guys. Well, look at that. Looks like you guys thought you guys were just going to be able to sell weed, and now you guys got to go to school and get some training, and I can't wait to hear what you guys got to say about this.
Your training is only as good as the trainer. Ask LADCR. They're currently in trouble because they provided a bunch of coaches to social equity operators who had no operational experience. So it'll be interesting to see what the requirements for the coursework is and see what comes up with the RFQ process.
Yeah, especially when we know a lot of people that have put a lot of these programs together, so it'll be interesting to see who they choose, Jenny Beth.
You know what's another one way to like make money if you're not in cannabis? Government contracts. People should be, ancillary services should be leaning into providing good programming because the government doesn't have that. They don't have that right now. You got to give it to them. And then, I like having rules for medical, but while you were reading it, a terrible idea occurred to me.
Oh boy.
And I want to come back to, I said, you think what the public says or is what they do. And to be narcissistic Texas, but I see something. If they don't sign it, then you don't like take a posture, right? So you can allow something that, everyone is vetoing, or petitioning you to veto or pass, whatever it may be in whatever state. Whatever they're petitioning.
That's how the state's constitution works, and so each state is different, and whether or not it works in your own state.
Many states allow that if the legislature has passed it and the governor makes no stance, it goes.
But that's all based off the rules involved in your own state's constitution. That's not it's not mandatory for all states that's how it works every time.
But I think it is an actual majority practice by most states because the legislature makes the rule, and if the governor doesn't sign it, the legislature would be the default. I think, and I know at least in Texas that is true. So you could have a bunch of people petitioning to veto something, and you could have the public perception that you didn't sign that bill while also not vetoing it and then signing on medical, which is like they're saying the expansion of medical in this state with program. I don't know. I just feel like they're all expanding medical and with a very specific reason and intention.
There was no expansion of medical. There was the expansion of government to regulate on how people are trained or whatnot. That's the only expansion that I see in this. There's no expansion on medical access. It's just saying, hey, you know what? All you employees, you guys got to go and get this training now, and it's mandatory. And if you want to keep your jobs, it's what it is. And they're probably going to make them pay for it too.
But from that is an expansion on medical legislature and clarification. They do
that's
see
not
it
an
as
no. That's expansion of government. It's not an expansion of medical. It has nothing to do with the access that people are able to access it from.
I didn't say medical access. I said expansion of medical legislation.
I don't know.
You know
about
what I'm saying?
That's
action, and then it's not really action. If you are an ancillary service provider, please send in your try to get that contract and do good work. And then also just governors cannot sign things, and that is not answering. It can sometimes be an answer too.
Dale, what do you guys say?
If you're
Dale?
an ancillary service provider, please don't try to get that contract. You need to be an operator to teach these people how to operate and properly run these businesses.
It sounds like the governor's pusillanimous here. He's a coward. He doesn't want to take a stand. And the short term for pusillanimous is you're a pussy.
That's right, Dale.
You don't want to take a stand here. And this is an expansion of bureaucracy. It's unnecessary.
Exactly.
If I get a job in a liquor store, nobody makes me take courses on alcohol and how to, you don't have an ID, you can't sell it. It's basically that simple.
It's that easy.
And I don't know what they're going to teach these people. Okay.
Yeah.
Because there isn't a universal agreement on what all this means. Okay. I mean, what does it mean to be sativa and indica? How do you?
Well, I mean, Dale, to even that point, you're not even allowed to market it as far as for different individual ailments or anything else like that. So exactly what are they going to be teaching in this? Like, it's basically it's like a food handler's course. You know what I'm saying? For weed is pretty much what it's going to be.
Oh yeah, but if you don't properly handle food, somebody gets sick.
Yeah,
okay.
But when you have everything that's prepackaged, I mean that should go into your distribution facilities, not into your retail establishments, Dale.
Yeah. Well, I think there's room for training for people in manufacturing, be able to manufacture and do it legally and live up to the safety codes that are out there. But if you're a business and you have to have people pass what we call the OSHA 30 out here to teach people about safety, then the goal is for safety for employees, okay? If the goal here is for safety for the public and it's prepackaged, what do you teach people? Well, if you see green mold growing in there, you probably shouldn't smoke it.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on, dude. Stop it.
Yeah.
That's discounting all of our cannabis scientists. They have things to share, and we've been arguing that we need to participate and contribute more to public education. I disagree. There's definitely space for people who do the research to have this, and I get why the legislators want it in the retail. I can't speak to this specific bill because I haven't read it, but here's what I can say is that it sounded like they want education and training as it relates to any retail operator who has a medical dispensing license. And if you're going to have that at retail locations, you need to have dispensers, whoever is standing there handing it off, like a pharmacist would, tell you, hey, this is how this is used. Do you have questions? If you notice this, if that, if you experience these symptoms, XYZ, like
they're not allowed to do that. They're not allowed to do that. No, they're not. No. You're not. It's a hit. No. Tell them, Jenny, to get into this, please, for a second for me.
All right, Jason, here I come.
Thank you.
No bud tender is allowed to give anything that even slightly resembles medical advice or recommendation.
They will get sued.
They are not qualified to do so, and they are not allowed by law to do so.
And I'm not talking retail bud tenders or medical.
They're not allowed. They're not allowed to do that, Shaun. They if you're a bud tender and you do that, you run the likelihood of getting your business sued, losing your job, and your owner is going to lose their business.
100%. Inside licensed cannabis facilities, that is not allowed. That is only allowed from a doctor.
Yep. Exactly.
Right. So then if they've passed this law that says they have to provide education, the education being education on the plant, maybe not specific to an individual patient, but do you understand why they're asking for education?
Yeah, I understand very clearly, but I also still don't understand if it's plant-specific education or if it's things like I provide, which is technical assistance, which means I work with owners through social equity programs paid for by the regulatory bodies that oversee them, that ensure that people have the business acumen or just the basic stepping stones to operate this business, to hire and fire properly, to train their staff properly, to properly cash handle, to do whatever comes through with this business that is different than other areas, to take on capital properly, to go into partnership agreements where they're not going to get completely skull fucked. Things like that. And technical assistance and being able to teach your bud tenders, hey, shit, the education might be stop making medical fucking claims.
Yeah.
Letting them know what they can do and how to operate inside the parameters of the position that they hold.
So Jason, can you clarify for this bill that was passed, the article that we just read, because I can't recall.
Yep.
Was this education for patient facing or for medical operators?
Let me go back, but I don't believe that it states that. You'd have to Google the bill 2837. You'd have to it mandates that all employees working in the state's medical marijuana sector complete an educational training annually to receive or renew their work credentials. I mean, this almost sounds like you know what this sounds like, Dale? You know, like in Vegas, how they make all the strippers get tested every year to make sure that they're able to be pole dancers. That's what this sounds like to me.
I can tell you that Molly and I had 15,000 patients, okay? when someone asks you a question and you've got a doctorate degree and you tell them, look, we don't know, but here's some of the things to consider, that's allowable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But when you go to a dispensary and say, I'm having trouble sleeping, what do you recommend? You better be careful, because if you're not careful, you're going to have both feet on your punani telling people something. You can't practice medicine. And I've gone to dispensaries and have somebody tell me something, and I start asking some Socratic questions. You find out you have no fucking idea what you're talking about. You're just a salesperson trying to push something. So I just think the government should stay it all together and let the court system, if you say, if you've got seizures, go take this, and, they have a seizure and kill somebody in the highway, guess who's going to be sued?
Yep.
You and your bud tender.
Yep.
Okay? Tell them, shut the fuck up. Okay. Refer them to their doctor or to sites like the Society of Cannabis Clinicians or other places where you can pose questions and ask them. But that's not the system we have, because this is higgledy-piggledy all over the country, and the feds say it's illegal. Within all that, most any attempts to do something are going to be criticized one way or another. I just don't think you should have people not trained in medicine giving any kind of medical advice. Mm-hmm. Shut the fuck up.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you all the way on that, Dale, all the way. And on that, I'm going to roll into our last story of the day today, you guys. I think you guys will enjoy this. And I decided, I found a good story, you guys, to end the day on today. It's Hump Day, Hemp Day, and weed for the people, everybody. You know what I mean? Because Jenny Beth, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this, because a Nevada bill to allow foster parenting despite past marijuana convictions awaits the governor's signature, you guys. That's right. On May 28th, 2025, Nevada lawmakers sent Assembly Bill 107, or AB 107, to Governor Joe Lombardo's desk, a measure that would end the automatic disqualification of foster parent applicants due to past low-level marijuana convictions. The bill, prompted by Clark County's need for more foster homes, aims to align state policy with Nevada's 2016 legalization of adult-use marijuana, addressing a shortage of that leaves over 3,000 children in foster care daily. The unanimous bipartisan support in the Assembly and a 19-2 Senate vote reflected broad agreement, but the bill's fate now rests with the Republican governor. Nevada's foster care system faces a critical shortage, with Clark County alone having fewer than 900 licensed foster homes for over 3,000 children, and current law disqualifies anyone with a federal or state drug-related conviction from fostering, including minor marijuana possession offenses that are now legal under AB 107. Sponsored by Assembly member Tracy Brown May, Democrat from Las Vegas, would allow individuals with convictions for possessing amounts now legal up to 2.5 ounces of marijuana or 0.25 ounces of concentrate to become foster parents. It also lifts the ban for marijuana-related convictions older than 5 years, and provided they do not involve sales. And Ashley Kennedy, a Clark County lobbyist, told lawmakers the county has lost, in quotes, qualified caring individuals due to outdated convictions, often over 20 years old, that no longer align with Nevada's current laws. While formal data is lacking, Kennedy estimated at least 10 families are turned away annually, and a small but significant number given that many foster homes take in multiple children. In a quote, "The impact is significantly larger," she said, noting the ripple effect on vulnerable kids. But there's bipartisan support does have an impact, because the bill received strong backing across party lines. Republican Assembly member Ken Gray, a co-sponsor, called it a game changer, and emphasizing the dire situation in rural areas like Lyon County, where which has only 7 foster families. In a quote, he says, "We have so few beds," Gray said. "Not only do these kids have to be taken away from their parents, they have to be taken away from their communities sometimes and put in other counties and other schools, and you're adding more damage on top of damage." AB 107 maintains rigorous foster parent requirements, including training, background checks, and home inspections, and ensuring child safety. And NORML's Deputy Director Paul Almertano praised the measure, stating, in quotes, "Nevada's foster care ban no longer aligns with public attitudes towards marijuana, nor does it align with the marijuana laws of Nevada or the surrounding states that regulate its use." But to provide a little bit more context on the broader reforms, Nevada's marijuana laws have evolved significantly since voters approved adult use marijuana back in 2016, and a 2020 resolution introduced by then Governor Steve Sisolak pardoned over 15,000 people for low-level possession convictions from 1986 to 2017, and in 2023, Governor Lombardo signed a bill doubling possession limits to 2.5 ounces and easing cannabis industry restrictions for those with prior felonies. These reforms reflect shifting attitudes, with 55% of Nevadans supporting legalization in 2016 and public sentiment continuing to favor them. And the foster care bill aligns with other state efforts to remove marijuana-related barriers, and in 2023, Nevada regulators proposed allowing police officer candidates with certain past marijuana convictions to qualify, and the Nevada State Athletic Commission voted to protect athletes from penalties for legal cannabis use. And these changes underscore a broader push to reconcile state law with modern realities. But what's next is because AB 107 awaits action from Governor Lombardo, who has supported cannabis reforms but has not committed on this bill. And if signed, it could take effect immediately, potentially adding foster homes in a state that desperately needs them. And advocates like Kennedy and Gray see it as a small but vital step to keep children stable in local environments. And in a quote, they say, even 1 or 2 homes in each county is going to make a significant difference, Gray said. But for now, Nevada's foster children and prospective parents await the governor's decision, which could reshape opportunities for both, you guys. Look at that, a little heartwarming story at the end of the show. What do y'all got to say about that?
About time.
Right?
About time. Smoking weed should not disqualify you from taking care of children. Okay, now, if there's other problems you got, I mean, you shouldn't be smoking weed around these kids. I mean, that's just be aware enough that you just don't do there. If you want to hit your vape pen, go someplace else. And if they come to your house and look at it, you got no food in the refrigerator, your toilets haven't been cleaned and stuff like that, and smoking weed ain't the problem. Just a piece of shit. You shouldn't have kids around.
Yeah.
But this blanket prohibition, because at some point you got caught with weed, is just incredibly stupid. You got, no one arrests you anymore for an open container of beer. They pour it out and send you on your way. But it's the same thing. If you drink, it should not be a blanket prohibition. If you're a drunk around kids, that's a problem. So a little further investigation. The foster care system is a mess right now, and we need to look out for the safety of these kids. But past conviction for possession of marijuana is not like, oh, we got to be careful. It's not like you're a child molester, or you have beat kids and your conviction is, abusing children. No. I like scotch. So what? Does it mean I can't be a foster parent?
Exactly.
Oh, stop it.
I agree with that. Go ahead, Shaun.
We have so many people abusing the foster care system, and then such a high demand need from the kids who actually deserve these benefits. So marijuana prior possession should be the lowest. It shouldn't. We have other things to focus on, like much more dire, much more impactful than this.
Here in California, our law is that you can't lose your children just because of marijuana. Okay? And if they look at it and he smokes pot, but look, he's got dead bodies buried in the backyard. His kitchen looks like no one's cleaned it for 10 months, no food in the house, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you should have a problem raising children in that environment, not because you smoke weed, but because you're a fucking hoarding scumbag. You shouldn't have kids around stuff like that. We need to do a more level of inquiry. And I'm going to just say this again, alcohol needs to be treated more like cannabis, vice versa. Stop putting the label on people, oh, you're a drug person, rather than, I just like scotch, okay? No problem with that. I like to smoke not blunts, but I like to smoke a joint every once in a while. So what? Okay? Doesn't make you a bad person or a bad parent. We need to get well beyond that. And I think the average person out there is thinking, it's about time. We can't find foster parents out there who are good at picking these kids up and helping them get to therapy and stabilizing their life. And they're not smoking weed in front of them, giving them gummies and stupid shit like that. And stop it. Get out of the way, because these kids need it. I mean, I've had foster kids before, and they are upside down and backwards. They're looking for some stability, someone to show them, not tell them, but show them they care about them enough stabilize their life, and get them moving forward. If you find people like that, I personally don't give two shits if they smoke weed. Don't do it around the kids and stuff like that. But, it's how are you performing, not some arbitrary, you do this, so therefore you're excluded. It has nothing to do with being a good foster parent.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. You have any thoughts on this, Jenny Beth? Did we lose Jenny? Is she on mute?
She's on mute.
Probably. Yeah, I am. All right. Yeah, I have some closing thoughts.
Go for it.
Kids need loving homes. They do. And, just because somebody got caught with a bag of weed in college and got prosecuted for it should not exclude them from being able to be that loving home. So I'm glad to see this going through. I hope it passes easily. And, we can get the kids some help where they need it. And that's a great way to end the show, Jason.
That's what I thought. I thought so as well. I'm with you, Jenny Beth. Yeah. Shout out to foster kids. Shout out to all the families that do help out with the foster care system. Very much respect to you guys. And on that note, thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to Aim High Hemp Distribution, Tested, and Catalyst for helping us keep the lights on over here. And thank you to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing. Thank you to Cannabis Sativa L for giving us a reason to do this every day. And thank you to Cloud Media Partners Anthony out there in the metaverse. And thank you for all the help with our technical difficulties today, bro. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show. And we are